Welcome to AFMC TV. I'm Robin Linder.
The goal of that is to maximize people's quality of life, right?
You want to make sure that your housing is affordable in your community.
We have to think about vaccines in a way that we haven't thought about them before.
I had a lot of the legislative adults who were very creative.
Down on the floor and play with their kids.
AFMC TV, thanks for watching. Have a great day. Welcome to AFMC TV. I'm Robin Ledbetter. Thank you for joining us. Today I have with me Dr. Chad Rodgers, and he's the Chief Medical Officer for AFMC. Dr. Rodgers, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So we're talking about button batteries. They're found in so many everyday household items. Why have they become such a significant safety concern?
Right. They are definitely in all sorts of household items. If you just go around your house right now, you can probably find several devices in your home that have these batteries. They are very powerful things, and they really help us with lots of things in our lives. The problem with them is a lot of them are powered by a certain size of these lithium button batteries that are just the right size to cause young children big problems. If they swallow them or ingest them, or if they get them stuck in their nose or their ear, these kind of batteries are in common household items are everywhere, and they can cause a lot of trouble.
And are you seeing an increase in cases or just greater awareness among providers and parents?
Well, I definitely think that we're seeing an increased number of cases. We see about 3,000 to 6,000 cases per year. That's a fivefold increase since about 15 years ago, because they are kind of in every kind of device that we use, whether that's our remote control or our key fob for our car, or even sometimes children's toys have these batteries inside. So they're definitely very common. I think, there is an increasing awareness of these batteries, which is important because it is something to think about if you suspect your child has ingested a battery.
So what actually happens physiologically when a button battery becomes lodged in a child's body, particularly in the esophagus?
Right. So like I said, these lithium batteries, they're just about the right size. They're 20 millimeters, which is about the size of a child under 5, under 6, just the right size for their esophagus to kind of get stuck. So that's kind of the problem with them is they, are in the toy, they put them in their mouth because they look like anything else. They swallow and they can get stuck at several levels, as high as, say, the voice box all the way down to the very top of the stomach. And they can sit there and they can cause a lot of trouble. There's kind of 3 things they can do. One is that they do like what they're supposed to do. They create a little electrical reaction, and they can actually, when the fluids in the throat can kind of turn that into kind of a little acidic kind of solution, it kind of begins to kind of burn the tissues if it's kind of sitting next to. The other thing is it can kind of put some pressure on those tissues as well if it lodges in the right place, if it lodges, at the level of the vocal cords. It can also, people worry about what's inside the battery. That's kind of less of a concern, but is a concern, if the battery was damaged or, did it come open, it could do more damage. But when it kind of gets there in the esophagus and sits, it kind of creates this little acidic solution, which, as opposed to an acid solution, it can still kind of burn the mucosa and start to create a hole or do a lot of tissue damage.
How quickly can serious injuries occur with these? Do they need to get to a doctor really fast? Yeah,
it can occur really quickly. So even within the first 10 to 20 to 30 minutes, you can start to see this reaction start to cause some damage. Generally, we feel that within 2 hours is sort of the critical time. So, after 2 hours, it can really cause a significant amount of damage. You may, just like with any burn that you might get on your skin, those can happen pretty quickly. Same thing inside of the esophagus. So it's real important if parents think that their child has ingested one of these batteries, that they seek medical attention. That includes going to the ER.
What symptoms might initially appear mild but signal a life-threatening situation?
Yeah, when I was thinking about this, they are kind of like a little silent danger, because initially when your child ingests, they may have no symptoms. But, very quickly, an older child might complain about a sore throat, or complain about difficulty swallowing. A younger child may just be real fussy and not want to eat well. In more severe cases, you might get drooling or wheezing or even vomiting. So, it can kind of look like some common illnesses or common things that children have. But in the context of one of these button batteries, one of these lithium button batteries, they can be dangerous and need to get evaluated.
So, what are the immediate steps providers should take if they suspect or believe that a patient has swallowed one?
Right. This is one of those kids that come to the ER that kind of need immediate attention. Time is of the essence, and it can take a little time to get them evaluated and get them, back to the OR or to do a procedure to remove the button battery. Sometimes you're not going to know, but, if you're suspected that the child has ingested, trying to get them back really quickly to get an x-ray done, either of their neck or their chest or their stomach, or probably all three if you're not sure how long ago the child ingested the battery. They are very easy to see on x-ray. So, quickly diagnosed. They have a very characteristic feature that's identified on a chest x-ray or a x-ray of the neck or stomach, like a coin, which is a fairly common thing for kids to ingest and swallow as well, looks kind of solid all the way through. But these have a real distinctive, almost kind of double halo or two circles. So you'll see the circle, and then you'll see sort of like where the step off of the battery is, just another really fine line. So it's a very identifiable characteristic of a battery ingestion. And then they quickly need to think about giving the child something to kind of help protect the esophagus. Usually they give some Carafate until they can get either ENT surgeon or maybe a general surgeon or a gastroenterologist, a GI doctor for kids, or even if an adult GI doctor feels comfortable to get in there and get quickly and get that button battery out.
So, what are the most important prevention messages that healthcare providers should be sharing with patients and caregivers?
Right. As a pediatrician, we love prevention. So there's lots of things. Like I said, these are in a lot of common household items, but also a lot of toys. If you have bought a toy recently for a child and it has a battery, you probably have noticed that it has this very small screwed department, the screwed in case that takes this very small, special, sometimes tedious screwdriver to get open. But that's what you want. You want it to be that securely screwed in and it can't be opened or got into. If it's not able to be protected, then sometimes just a good piece of duct tape or something like that to kind of cover it. But even that is probably not safe. The other thing is just to look for toys that don't have batteries, which is kind of hard to find, may limit you. I think the other thing to think about is, making sure that we're storing these batteries just like we store medications up and out of reach, so that children can't get to them. And the other thing I didn't really think about too much the other day until Mother's Day was, just recently, but those greeting cards that we often give people on their birthdays or Mother's Day or something like that, a lot of those have these batteries in them. So, really making sure that we securely put those out of reach, are careful, or just really opt not to buy. If they're not in the home, then you don't have to worry as much.
So, what is the one thing every healthcare provider should remember when it comes to button battery ingestion?
I think, when I was training, I am about 25 years into this. We used to think batteries were something that kids often swallow, just like coins and other things, and they would just pass through. But I think what providers need to be aware about is that these new lithium button batteries, these things that are commonly found, are very much a very serious threat to children, need to be addressed pretty quickly. It's not something to just kind of watchfully wait. There are some times that you can wait if the coin is passed through the esophagus and into the stomach, then you can kind of watchfully wait. But if it is there in the esophagus, it's been a short amount of time, providers need to know that really need to get to this very quickly and look at their options. If you can't get a GI doctor, you may need an ENT surgeon or even a general surgeon to get in there quickly and get it out.
And before we go, what's the most important message providers should pass along to parents?
Yeah, I think this is something that we kind of talk, as pediatricians, we kind of talk about, or at least give information at visits because it is so pervasive. I think, providing that information to kind of watch for it. I think the other thing is a public awareness that these batteries are there and that they're dangerous. And then the other thing is just to advocate, for safety. So with the manufacturers, making sure that these compartments are tightly screwed in, or that they're very difficult to get to the battery, or create toys that probably, may not require a battery for young children. So there's lots of things that we can do to prevent, just the ingestion. The other thing is it's a good opportunity, a good learning thing for your children. Just never put anything in their mouth and carry it around. You often, if you raise young children, that everything goes in the mouth. So, this is another opportunity to kind of think about that. And, there's probably things that they can do even to make the batteries less appealing. There's, sometimes a bitter coating on the batteries and stuff like that, so that they don't want to put in their mouth, but you know how children can be.
So what should a parent or family member do if they suspect that a child has swallowed one of these at home? What's one of the immediate things they should do?
Right. If you know that your child has swallowed one or you highly suspect one, the first thing is probably to call the Poison Control Center, or there is a dedicated line for these button battery ingestions. But one thing that the parent can do if their child is over 12 and can swallow, they could actually administer about 2 teaspoons of honey, which is about 10 milliliters if you're into milliliters. And they could do that about every 10 minutes, as long as their child isn't choking or swallowing or vomiting. But that can kind of help coat the area and protect it. It doesn't stop the reaction from the button battery, but it definitely protects the tissue around it.
And tell us about the task force that you were on. And there are special groups that focus on advocacy and research and best practices for these.
Right. Well, as a member of the American Academy of Pediatrics, when I was on the committee on practice, we actually had a subcommittee with the ear, nose, and throat doctors within the academy to create this button battery task force to begin to look at increasing awareness about button battery ingestions, what to do if we saw them, recommendations for imaging and how to treat, as far as, in the acute time when they need like x-rays and stuff like that, but also in the weeks kind of after, to make sure that these are healing well and not leading to more serious complications.
And also, is it better to have surgery? This is not something that they can pass. They must have it surgically removed.
Right. So they not necessarily had to surgery wise, but they may need a scope on what type of scope they use to kind of go down there and retrieve that. It is urgent to get out. If it's kind of further into the stomach or into the intestine and it's causing trouble, then you may have to have surgery. But it is important that if it is sitting there in the esophagus, they go in and get that out and get it out pretty quickly.
So what are some more serious complications that you see in swallowing a button battery?
Yeah, they're percentage-wise, they're a little bit less, maybe about 10% of button battery ingestions lead to more serious complications, but that's really what we worry about. So, sort of the damage that's done to the tissue can cause scar tissue, and which can often cause strictures. And of course, the esophagus is real important that it stretches and then contracts in order to help you swallow and eat and all things that we enjoy doing. But though you can get a lot of scar tissue, you can also get some damage to the nerves that innervate or kind of supply your voice box that allow you to speak. So around any tissue, and really severe, which these are just the really bad complications. But one of the reasons why we get so excited about button battery ingestions is because that damage, that tissue can erode, and it can kind of erode into the structures around it. Sometimes that's the trachea, which is like your windpipe. But even more importantly, there's a really large blood vessel that lies close to your esophagus, say aorta, and it can create and erode and create a kind of a connection or a passageway between those two, between your esophagus and the aorta, and that can, ultimately lead to death. So that's, even though it's rare, it's sort of the thing that we kind of get are most concerned about. And any chance that you can, of course, save a child's life, you want to try to be as aggressive as possible. So, I think recognizing early, even though, you can have some mild damage, a lot of times that heals. But depending on how long the battery's been in there, sometimes that can kind of cause some more serious complications, which are the things that we really worry about. So the doctors will continue to kind of monitor, evaluate that, often do an MRI to kind of look at those tissues around where the battery was to make sure that they're healing well.
Well, Dr. Rodgers, thank you so much for talking about this important topic. Who knew that there was so much of an increase in accidents that are happening with these? And I appreciate you talking through this today.
Yeah, I'm glad to talk about it.
And that's it for AFMC TV. Have a great day. Thanks for watching.